What's up, bros, non-bros, gigolos, my friends, my people? Big nasty day in the stock market today. We had a semiconductor breakdown and a nasty little candle on the QQQ. Let's dig into today's action in the stock market and then the coming game plan of what we do. Is this the start of a correction or is this a one-off event, right? So first of all, the market was nasty today. We had multiple pieces of news out. You know, ASML put out a nasty piece of news here, and you could see like this thing just ended up getting just shamangled right off the gate, right? So 15%. And if you look at it, you know, I think it might be they reports Q3 results ahead of schedule after accidental leak. And so it kind of came out of nowhere, right? Like this thing, the market was looking like it was going to break the F word out. And right next thing you know, these guys come out and say like, hey, we gotta report some earnings. And so this took the market down, right? This took the semiconductors down. And you could see like if you're just kind of tracing it where the market broke and this broke, right? Like you can see you're kind of hanging out for really just a handful of minutes here. And you got one candle, two candle, three candle, four candle, five candle. And just right around that same time, right? Like everything else starts to really, you know, break down. And so we kind of had this, right? See, like you're just kind of like hanging out, just doing a little bit of work and then boom. And so there was, you know, this piece of news from ASML. And then on the other side of things, you know, there was, you know, even some news on some more chip embargo stuff yesterday. And so you kind of there was a late reaction to that. I don't think, it didn't seem like in the aftermarket there was that much reaction to it. But I think, you know, these two things coupled together can add for a little bit of spice. And that's what we got. And boy, it was. And it came in fast, you know. But there were some telltale kind of signs here. You know, a lot of the semis that just open weak right off the gate. So like AMD was flushing like really right off the gate, and you know AVGO was kind of flushing right off the gate. And so you know there were a couple telltale signs like these gap down and then they ORB'd. So that when they break the opening range, then you have an idea like, okay, like maybe things are going to get a little bit nasty McGee here. And you know, once NVIDIA rolls over, right, the whole market is taking off. And so taking off to the downside. So what the heck happens next, right? Well, we were due for a pullback. You know, in today's pre-market show, we were talking about it, that, you know, we're kind of nuzzling up against the, you know, a little bit of an overbought condition on top of the Bollinger Band, and we were a little bit extended on the SPY. And so having you know, we were talking about this in pre-market, you know, having a little bit of a retest will probably be pretty positive of the market. And so we've pulled back here. And so now the big question becomes, is this a one-off event or is this something deeper? So we've seen these kind of things before and they've been kind of one-off events, right? And, you know, so we don't want to read too much into it. You know, this is a huge chip company. And so that is something that we have to keep into the back of our heads. Now, this thing's been a dog for a while. And so that's why I'm, you know, I'm not sure like if this is like actually going to lead to a more protracted downturn, because this thing's been a dog for quite some time anyways. But we do have to be careful. So tomorrow, like if you're just like, wow, the semis had one down day, you know, let's just buy some. I don't know if we're necessarily there yet. We are pulling back into some small amounts of support in AVGO, right? Some small amounts of support in TSM. But look, we only gave back really like, right, a couple days worth of gains on these things. And so it's not the end of the world. Like, you know, TSM still looks great. It really does, right? AVGO looks still pretty good. But like it needs to hold here, right? Because you don't want this to come back down into this range, because then this ends up being a failed breakout. You know, like even something like ARM, well, it was up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days in a row. So of course you're going to pull back. You're at the top of broke outside the Bollinger Band. You were super overbought. Like you have such an extension here. Like you were at 133 You go to 165, like that's a pretty big extension. So we have to kind of take all of this with a little bit of a grain of salt and see how we open tomorrow. What I have noticed is, like, usually the QQQs, after these big down days, if you have a weak open and it kind of flushes off at the open, they've been rebounding this thing really hard. And so you have to be prepared for it. And then on the other side of things, if you really look beyond these like semiconductor stocks, the IWM held up. And a lot of mid caps to, small SMIDs also held up. And so there is a pocket of strength here that we can play. Now, it did fade, a lot of its gains, but it still stayed in the green. And if you look at your scans, there's like a whole host of these. So let's dig into the watch list. I personally don't think today was like some big game-changing event, but it is something that, we keep into the back of our heads and say like, well, let's see how we open tomorrow. I think probably today, a lot of people got stopped out of some positions. And so you always want to be trailing up your stops. But look, if we have a weak open tomorrow and we open into this 20 SMA, that's been a good bounce spot. That's been a good bounce spot for us of recent, right? Like, we've been pulling back into this kind of 20. So if we kind of get back into this zone right here, I think we try to do some longs here, right? Now, if we have a big gap up tomorrow and we kind of open up in middle of the range, we may chop around a little bit and get an inside day. So just be mindful. If you open weak or even flat and you kind of flush down into this zone, I think we try some longs. If you open up kind of in the middle, then you're just kind of the penis in between us, right? You're in the back seat of your buddy's Volkswagen. You may not have as much fun, right? Now, regardless of what's happening with the QQQ and the SPY, there's a whole host of stocks that I think are looking good that may kind of buck the system a little bit. So, first, let's look at the Wolf Nation, right? So the Wolf Nation had a PR out. They had a decent size investment, $2.5 billion in additional, in additional capital. It's only a $2 billion company. So it gapped up and it didn't hold because obviously the whole semiconductor market is going. Still finished up 21%. I think this is something we want to put on watch for day trades. Remember, we were looking at this for a swing trade over here. I didn't take it personally because I'm a world-class idiot, but hey, right? We still got time. You got a lot of room on this thing. So let's see how this thing opens up. If you can hold the bottom of the breakout bar, then I think we've got a trade in it. Dude, Oklo bucking the system today. A lot of good pieces of news on this. This company had 37 million shares in volume today. That's the biggest volume day it's had in its, life. And obviously it's a newer company, but you're finishing up pretty strong even in a weak market. I think that's something right up your watch list. Look for you degenerates out there that like to trade more of these small cap names. This is a nice flag pattern that's happening on Capper. I personally won't play it because, dude, this thing could drop 50% at any day. But if you're day trading, like this is some hot range, and just make sure you're really tight with the risk. But like the range is there on this thing. Like that's a good looking stock. If I was 5 years younger and had a little bit more sprouts on the top of my head, like I'm playing that thing. The Bumble, guys. The Bumble is ready. Man, this thing was $80. And you know what? It coincides when I became unsingle, the stock started to crater. Man, I was spending so much money on those Bumble boosts and Tinder boosts. Man, I was doing boosts, super likes, man, everything on those lonely Fridays, man. Not that anybody's ever, replying back. Hey, look, if you're a brown man looking for white girls on a Friday night at 10 p.m., you might not be getting them. You might not be getting as much action, right? Like you gotta resort to all sorts of tricks sometimes. But the Bumble's ready, man. Now that I'm out of the game, I could see this thing coming back. It's got an $8 gap fill on it. Great base breakout here. You got a great level here. I might tuck some of this in my IRA or a longer term account. It looks pretty good. Same thing with this Airy, if it can come out of this range. Now, solar's been a big giant rundy, but you're starting to kind of show a little bit of accumulation here, too. I think this has got a chance. Roku! Dude, Roku's got a level right here. It held up today, up 3%. held into the bone zone. You're right at the breakout spot. To me, this looks like you could even, if it can clear this, if it can clear this zone, I mean, I put a stop at 75, and dude, the float's pretty low on this. So I would let this thing rage, and see if you can get it into the 90s. Dude, Mitch, this is Match.com. A little bit of Bumble's competitor, but looks like they're all going. My market's telling us something here, man. There's lonely people out there looking for love. Man, you got a nice breakout over here. It goes back the whole year. Test. It does about 3 million shares of volume, so it's enough. Bucking the system again today, right? And look, it trades well. Like you pop up, you ORB, you pull back into, right, your support zones, and they're starting to hold. Like, that's what you want to see. I'm not just interested in charts, but I'm also interested in how these stocks act and react when they're starting to move. So it's got a good look to it. I think you keep that on your watch list. Out of all the bigger, kind of heavier stocks, still watching this SMCI for a break over that 50-day moving average. It's just kind of testing. It may need a PR or something to kind of unleash it, but it's getting there. And then, look, the Googles, right? After all this kind of antitrust, take apart stuff, you got yourself a little bit of a W pattern here. And, right, that's a nice rebound pattern. If you can come out of this, still finished in the green today. I think this has got a chance. My only worry on this one, it's up 4 days in a row. It needs one inside day, ideally, where, like, you just kind of have a really narrow range day. That would set it up for a much more powerful move over this. Now, Google's slow, so you got to do the calls on it. If it rips, like, you go 167.50s, right? You don't want to go too far up because it doesn't have a huge range. But that's got a good look to it. Gold's got a breakout here. If gold rips, then, you can trade gold stocks, but you can also just trade the options on this or a gold ETF. You got the Nuggets and J-Nugs, but they're a little bit illiquid. But that's a good look. Like, if you didn't know that was gold, you'd be like, damn, that's the hottest stock around. And it is, right? So I'm looking at, maybe going a couple weeks out on some calls on this if it breaks. That's just got a damn good look on it, really bucking the system again. Pan W. This needs a rest day. Maybe one more to let the EMA catch up. But look at this thing, right? Test. While the market is down, like, this thing has been thrusting up, and it just is kind of coagulating right here. It's marinating before the breakout. Dude, it could break out tomorrow. If it had one more rest day, it'd be even better. But look, it has been resting for a few days. It's been stuck, even though these are green candles, it's been stuck inside this range for a few days anyways, right? You're building out a little bit of a box here. So watch that 378. That's a good looker right there. Snappy Chat. This one you almost have to trade the options on. It just doesn't move fast enough. But the options on it will move. Like, if this thing moves 2%, the options probably go up 40, 50% on this thing. Got a nice look on this one, right? Whoa, I'm liking it. All right, so if you notice, I didn't really put, like, some of the bigger stocks on. I think NVIDIA, this is the second test. If it comes down into 120, I would say anywhere from 128 to 125, I'm a believer, right? If it gaps up tomorrow and it's mid-range, I probably leave it alone. But give me it down here. I'm doing some purchasing, right? AVGO, it's holding at the 20 SMA too. So, like, if the chips rebound, then those are the two that I really want to be. Those are the two that I want to be a part of. And then, TSM is also, right, looking very, very good. I'd stay away from AMD because it's busted, right? Like, it's under the 200-day moving average. It's just been stuck in a nasty range anyways, so there's not much you need to do with that. So, guys, let me know if you need anything. I love you guys. Peace. Stay safe. We don't know what the market brings us tomorrow. Today is always days like today are always a little wake-up call. Whenever you get overconfident, whenever, you're just drawing a lot of lines on your chart and you're making money, and everybody's making money in a market like this, you'll get one of these days where out of nowhere the market rolls over, right? People got skittish fingers, the algos, get jumpy, and then it's off to the races. So, guys, let me know if you have any questions. I love you guys. Peace.